Hey investor friends, I'm Michelle Markey, and today I've curated for you one of the greatest of all time investors, Charlie Munger's advice for new investors or people who want to be great investors in a talk that he gave in 2008 to students at Caltech, where he also studied and at which he believes
asininity around Caltech is way low for a human institution.
And part of the reason of Charlie Munger's success in life in the world of investing and otherwise is due to his collecting inanities and asininities, which are things that are silly, stupid, or foolish. And he's done his best to learn vicariously from the mistakes of others and avoided repeating those same foolish mistakes for maximum success in life. And so you'll also hear about his concept of the Lollapalooza effect, which is an extreme outcome happening from multiple things happening at the same time in the same situation. And so Charlie has learned a lot about human psychology, and that can also benefit us greatly in any of our financial pursuits. So if this sounds great to you, please be sure to like and subscribe to my video and YouTube channel, and let's get into Charlie Munger's wisdom on this topic.
I'm a Caltech undergrad here, and as Caltech undergraduate education goes, we learn things from math and physics to chemistry, biology, all the sciences that you can imagine. But we don't get a lot of insight into, business and investing. And as sort of a new investor, my question is, what, in your opinion, is the best piece of advice for a new investor or for current investors?
Well, I think it's very useful to get the capitalist perspective. Namely, how do you make this thing work for the people that own it? Because the reality will make more sense when you go at it with that perspective. So even if you don't intend to get rich, you want that perspective because you'll understand the reality you're dealing with better. So I think you mentally want to make yourself an investor as part of the proper training of your mind. And since you have to do it anyway to improve your mind, you may as well get rich while you're doing it. And so if you underspend your income while you're alive and keep learning and collect all the bonehead mistakes other people made and avoid them and so on, I would confidently predict that you'll do just fine. But there's no one book or one idea or something that's going to do it. The one idea that people use is the one that Ben Graham borrowed from engineering, which is the concept of a margin of safety. In other words, factoring in all the probabilities, you want a bonus probability. You want a margin of safety in what you're doing. And that's a very good concept when you're designing a bridge, and it's a very good concept when you're making an investment. You want something that will handle some mischances from life and still do well. And so if there were one concept, why, Ben Graham would have said that's the concept. But it's easier to state than it is to work it out case by case. Tom, I interrupted you.
To throw out a Munger-like concept, the things you're learning should be connected to one another. And that's part of your job. You're learning a bunch of separate things at Caltech. Try to figure out how they're connected to one another. And that may mean reading a lot of other stuff, but it's all of a piece. It's not a bunch of separate compartmentalized things. And I believe I've lifted that from Charlie.
Yeah, but all this stuff is really quite obvious. That's it. And yet most people don't really know it in a way where they can use it, which is a very interesting educational problem.
I wanted to know what you think the most important career or academic experience a young person could get today would be to become a great investor in the future.
Well, I think it helps to have a generalized competency in dealing with words and numbers and quantities and concepts. And of course, it helps to practice with that competency. And then if you collect follies the way I do and stay away from the follies, when you're as old as I am, you'll be a rich old man. And by the way, I'd rather be you.
I remember reading a long time ago, like Warren Buffett, you and Buffett were not into like macroeconomical things, issues like, but Mr. Buffett, I read recently he's been like investing in the Brazilian real and, basically long foreign exchange, foreign currencies. So I want to see what's your outlook on the U.S. dollar and interaction with, the economy and how bad it can get and how bad can this stock market get?
Yeah. Well, averaged out, Berkshire has not made its progress in life by making wonderful macroeconomic predictions. We figured out how some things were very likely to do way better than other things, and we got into those things. Occasionally, in recent years, Warren has kept out of other mischief by doing things like buy the Brazilian real. And he's done it very intelligently, and he's made a few $1 billion. But it's a sideshow. When the markets are scarce for our kind of activity, Warren has to do something. And he's so used to a few $1 billion coming over the transom he sometimes stretches a little if it's easy enough.
Okay.
But I can't help you with a simple solution to getting rich with soft white hands.
I was pleased to hear you speak about common sense and the Lollapalooza effect and your lattice work of mental models. I'm wondering if you could give us a specific example of how you integrated these ideas to recognize a great investment. That would be of great help to those of us trying to understand and replicate your success.
Well, some of the ideas were so simple. We noticed that in city after city, the monopoly newspaper made more money every year. And in some cities, there were still 2 newspapers and one was slowly dying. And so we bought the one that was sure to win. Does this strike you as a complicated idea?
It's the new newspaper.
And one time we did that with the Washington Post. We made $1 billion with 10 million. So a lot of these things are perfectly obvious, and you just have to train yourself to. You have to develop the knack of using the knowledge you have.
Next.
It's a knack. You have to work at it. It won't come in just over the transom because you'd like to have it.
You've spent a really interesting life looking for the truth in a number of situations and then have acted upon it, whereas other folks in Wall Street and in academia and in other cultures seem to, even if they see the truth, they don't follow it. They find it easier or what have you to follow their fellows in doing this. What is it that you've done that you could suggest or that seems to be a model for these guys, kind of discarding the opinions of their fellows and pursuing something that would really be, as you said, developing the knack for this?
I think to some extent I was naturally disrespectful of the received wisdom, and I wanted to figure it out better. And I think to some extent that was an inherited disposition. And I turned what many people would regard that horrible lemon into lemonade. But I don't know. I think you can make that kind of lemonade out of my kind of lemon. I don't know if you can do it out of marshmallows.
You upheld Benjamin Franklin repeatedly for his ability to master many disciplines, and you spoke a lot about the humanities and social sciences and Wall Street. I'm exactly half your age, and just in my lifetime, I've noticed a big shift in the incentive structures and everything from university admission to youth sports as well as the workplace in rewarding specialization. Do you think that, is there any alternative way that you can think of to reward multidisciplinary success as opposed to the very high degrees of specialization that seem to be what gain people status and financial reward?
Well, of course, we should have high degrees of specialization. And if you get a nice little cancer in some ghastly place, you will not want a guy that really understands Proust. You know, I mean, but of course, it's my argument that you can be quite competent in your specialized field and also have the common sense over a broad area if you work at it appropriately. Let's take the case of Newton. More than half of the powerful creative period in Newton's life was totally wasted on alchemy and theology. And in the remaining half, he managed to create quite a distinction in his chosen profession. He had power to burn. Now let's assume you're not Newton. You're just a good guy who's going to be a good mechanical engineer. You know, don't you think you could get a general competency? Just as you might be a good engineer and also play golf? There's plenty of time to do it without ruining your specialized competency. All you have to have is the will and the technique. And every hour you delay in doing it, it's just, you're just increasing the chances that you'll remain in the shallows. Now, most people are happy in the shallows. After all, there's always somebody that's in a shallower place. You go into the really fundamental tensions of multidisciplinarity. Every biologist thinks a little like Paul Ehrlich. You know, they think, my God, you know, carrying capacity of the land, you excel at, tragedy's coming. And every economist thinks we've had compound interest at 3 or 4% for 300 years, and who's to say we can't do it for 500 years more? And they just each live in their little world, and nobody thinks that these ideas, in the end, have to synthesize in the real world. And, of course, from neither side are they very good at this synthesis. Every ecologist underestimates the power of the ideas of the economists, and every economist tends to believe that any troubles from carrying capacity are almost non-existent. I once heard an economist say that the supply of coal was infinite. And I said, how did it become infinite? And he said, well, not quite infinite. But I am not inventing these stories. They're in my collection of inanities. As I say, if you just join my collecting council, you can have all the fun I've had all my life, and you'll never run short of material.
And so to summarize Charlie's key lessons here, your success in life and in investing will depend on how well you can critically think and synthesize information from multiple disciplines while avoiding the follies of human nature. And Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett like to follow in the footsteps of economist John Maynard Keynes, who said that it's better to be roughly right than precisely wrong. And so if you enjoyed this video or learned something, please like and subscribe. And I wish you well on your journey to being the best investor you can be. Till next time.